Welcome to an episode of Wing Zero Duality. And I only have a few seconds with the average amount of you. So, here it goes. The wanting to know creates for the knowing of want. Wanting to know is a natural, human impulse, certainly. And yet, we find that knowledge, being of the past, being necessarily the past, is always going to be limited. And so a delay, a separation, a want is created. And so can the human being fundamentally change to find that knowledge is always limited? So the space in which knowing and the known is no longer separate, that sort of psychological evolution will surely have an impact on the world around us. Okay? Now, for those of you who continue to watch this channel, we'll dive a little deeper into what that means. Unpack all of that. Because we as human beings certainly have gotten to this point now where our lives can be interconnected at an instantaneous pace and on an anonymous level. And so, in a world where communication is vital, in a world where being able to have an inner resolution is key, we perhaps can do both simultaneously through this here. And the wanting to know, it can be seen with our experiences on YouTube, can it not? Someone who brings us knowledge, that of the sort which could lead to a transformative change in this understanding of ours, this limited scope, this turmoil and chaos in which we find our lives, or a sense of meaninglessness and boredom. And we can find that there's great energy, great excitement as to knowledge which may change the outside world, or add a new layer and depth of our already existing knowledge of ourselves, each other, in this world. But we can also find that on some level, all that we know is inherently tied into all that we are in conflict over. Whether it be the sorrow, the great sorrow of the circumstances of our lives, the circumstances of the inability to resolve for conflict in this world and its inevitable consequences. And so we find a great deal of energy spent on an individual basis. Perhaps if we were to know, then perhaps we can change the world. Or if perhaps only the world knew, then the world can change. This has been humanity's process. As far as YouTube tells me, Because I've seen all these videos on YouTube for millennia. For as far back as recorded history, humanity has been passing down knowledge of itself, each other, and the world. And yet, all that we need is already within us. The knowledge of the world. Because what is the world besides knowledge of it? And what makes up the thinker or the knower besides knowledge itself? The knower is also a set of, or a amount of knowledge contained within that knowledge. So, to be able to simultaneously go about fundamentally changing structures of society, whether it be physics, right, whether it be martial arts, whether it be social political domains. The simultaneous aspect of it is something that hasn't really dawned on humanity, has it? Because if it did, a channel like this would be able to undercut or intercept the impulse of the wanting to know. The human would be like, wait, wanting to know, and now I know, okay. But now it creates the knowing of want. And the conflict which spreads. Because knowledge, then, is always going to be never separate from the knower. So now we introduce opinion. We introduce conditioned perspective, and so on. And so this is the sort of fragmentation. Right? And when there's fragmentation, there's a split. And that split is the wanter and the want. So, and of course, knowledge of the technical sort is not what I'm referring to here. Although it is interesting to note that perhaps there can be knowledge of a technical sort which lends back to resolution of the paradox between the wanting to know creating for the knowing of want. But I digress. This simultaneous approach, which is not common to mankind, which is not something that's found in education, because education instills the knowledge, memory, and experience process. It instills it further, as it has for millennia. Is the simultaneous ending of the wanting to know, that of which ends the knowing of want. Because if there's no knower, there's no known. And the knower is an aspect of the known. So is there an entirely new dynamic which arises at such a point? At such a starting point? A starting point which is the first and the last step in such a resolution. at such a point, there isn't a division between oneself and the wholeness, in a literal sense. The wholeness of what there is to be observed. Such a quality is one that makes for an unloading of burdens, that allows for grace to define our moments in life. One which is not in conflict with the great problem of death. The process between life and death, then, collapses as well, the separation. The wanting to know is perhaps a way to try to stave off that which creates fear in time, that which is death, the ending of the knower. Can such a action which is not born out of the mechanical process of the brain, and by mechanical, I mean a process between various parts in conjunction, working through time. This simultaneous approach does not depend on time. And when coming to solve problems which are born out of the human mechanism, problems which involve the same problems that humanity has faced for centuries, that of which erupts into violence based on tribalism, however sophisticated a tribe may be. Can a human being find the impulse of the wanting to know is tied into all that which is known, the maintaining of that which is known, the inability to free itself of the shackles of the known, that to find security in the known is to essentially run in place, having to utilize so much energy to run in place. And once that running in place stops for oneself, if one can take it, because most cannot, but when one relaxes, turns the treadmill off, and finds, what was all that energy being wasted for? What quality of freedom is it to limit oneself to the known? What quality of freedom is it to have to continuously contest and be contested as to the known when it's simply put, all of it is of the past? And it being the past, it can never come upon the quality of the living.